It's Brian Preston, the Money Guy.
All right, next we have a question from, his username is struggling to do the right thing.
Uh-oh.
So hopefully we can help him out. I feel that I am to the point that I need the help of a financial advisor. I want to do the right thing. He really did say that in the question. Can you speak to the cost versus benefit of partnering with an advisor like Abound Wealth?
Okay, cost versus benefit. Because I want to think about how to, because so obviously we do this for a living. This is what our quote unquote day job is. But I want to make sure that I'm not just giving you some self-serving answer. I want us to speak to actual value add that advisors go. I think one of the first things you have to assess when it comes to hiring a financial advisor is, when does it make sense to do so? Because you have to answer the when question, and then you have to answer the valuation question. In our opinion, there are 3 times that it really makes sense to think about hiring a financial advisor. Either one, the size of your decisions is so big you're uncomfortable doing it by yourself. 10% boo-boos on $1 million is a really big boo-boo that might be hard to overcome. The second thing is, your financial life just gets so complicated, you don't know what you don't know. Things have happened in your financial life where you're just not as well versed on those as maybe you were earlier on in life. And then the third thing is, we just get busy. We get pulled in all these different directions, and all of a sudden we notice our financial affairs begin falling on the back burner, on the back burner, on the back burner. If you happen to be in one of those 3 places, that might be a really good indication, hey, this is a good time for me to entertain the idea of potentially hiring a professional to help me. So once you've arrived at that, then you can think, okay, well, what are some of the values that a professional adds? What are some of the things that they can help me with?
By the way, we have a great resource. If you go to moneyguy.com/resources, we have the 8 questions you should ask your financial advisor.
Freshly new brand.
Yeah, go check that out. That's the first thing. First stop, so you can have a good piece, a tool to actually have the discussion. But the thing I sit here and think about is, I had a big transaction recently that I was like, because I'm like you guys. I'm like, if I can do this myself, I want to do it myself, save a few bucks. And I was Googling terms in this legal document, and I was like, what? I caught myself. I was like, what are you doing? I was like, when you're Googling terms of a legal document, you're crazy, because this is the first time I've gone through this transaction. There are people who've literally done this thousands of times. It would be a lot better if that person was helping me navigate this. But I didn't want to do it originally because they were going to take a decent chunk, a percentage of what this transaction would do. And I was like, man, I really had to measure twice and think about it. But at the end of the day, and now I'm kind of into the process, I'm like, thank goodness I hired this person, because I was on the wrong side of this, because I didn't know what my blind spots were. I didn't know what were the things that people were going to try to turn the screws on in this transaction that I was doing. Retirement's kind of the same thing. A lot of you don't know what the psychological, and I deal with this all the time with people. You can think you are super comfortable with the risk of the markets and diversifying and investments. When I'm in the Boglehead type chats, and they're like, 100%, VOO or whatever they want to, they always give me the index fund. I'm going to do this, do it ride or die, for forever. Why would anybody ever diversify? And I'm like, they don't know what's going to happen once they leave the workforce, because what happens when you go through your first downturn and you are no longer working, because you're kind of subject to the emotional, it gets amplified to a level you never experienced, when you no longer can go back through that threshold of saying, I'll go work a few more years to make it through it. Because right now, when the market's down, you can be like, hey, that's all right. I'm not retiring for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. I'll just keep working, and recovery will be okay. When you're actually out there in retirement, it gets scary. And that's where a lot of people will like having that co-pilot to kind of help you, been there, done that, and help you make the right decisions instead of the emotional decisions.
And I think a lot of the flaw when people hire a financial advisor is they think about it only in terms of, okay, here's my cost. What rate of return can this person return to me that is greater than that cost? And while that's like an easy numeric way to do that, a really good financial advisor, there are other things that ought to come into the equation. Like, for example, How do you quantify an advisor that puts together a Roth conversion strategy that saves you hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes over the remainder of your life because you structured your account in a different way? Or how do you quantify the value add that an advisor gives you when your Monte Carlo simulation in your first meeting was an 83%, but because of some savings goals and strategies you've implemented, that Monte Carlo probability of success goes to 95%. Those are some of the intangible, hard to quantify benefits that we think an advisor can really lean into. So if you're thinking about hiring an advisor, I would encourage you to use the 8 questions to ask that we have on the website. But here's also a really great question to ask an advisor when you talk with them. And this is something we tell our folks. Hey, when you come and work with us, our job is to get you addicted to us. Our job is to make sure that we add so much value that this fee thing you're worried about on the front end just falls off. And you immediately start saying things like, oh, I couldn't imagine doing this without you. I couldn't imagine not having you in my corner helping me navigate these financial decisions. And if you ever feel like the value isn't there, well, we have a system set up where you can vote with your feet and you can leave and you can go somewhere else and you can go do it on your own. And I think you'll be amazed that once you kind of cross that threshold and you start saying, oh, this is what an advisor does. This is what really great planning looks like. It'll blow your mind and you'll say things like, oh man, I'm so glad that I found them when, or I started doing this when.
Well, I think it's interesting. I don't want to, because we need to tie this question down, but you just said something that hit me so hard. Is I think about when I talk to some of our primary advisors and they talk about working with the CPAs or they reviewed a tax return and they found a huge glaring structure mistake.
Huge.
And then I think about a legal settlement that I personally helped that person realize that because attorney's fees weren't deductible anymore under the new tax policy, that this was going to cost them a fortune because it was multiple 7 figures I saved them with just asking the questions, and the attorney was completely oblivious to the changes in the tax law. Mm-hmm. It's those type of things that, big life things. I'm riding to work and I call my mom this morning and she's like, son, what do you know about prenups? And then she told me a whole story about somebody in her Sunday school class that her daughter signed something. And I was like, well, I mean, if she had somebody in her side, there's nothing wrong with, legal structures in certain ways, but you need to understand what you're getting into. It's nice to have somebody who's in your corner to kind of help you. Like I said, done it before. Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing that, so I get it from a tightwad or a transactional standpoint. People are expensive. Mm-hmm. Time's expensive, but your time is expensive. And I think if you look at what the potential loss is compared to what's paid, I sleep good at night because I feel like we're making the world a better place for every one of our clients.
Agreed.